Welcome into a special reaction show inside Carolina on the On3 network. We are sort of filling out the place, getting used to our new digs on the On3. If you're not a member of Inside Carolina on the On3 network, go get your username. You can get a free one, read the free message boards, or you can sign up for $1 and get the Inside Carolina premium stuff, which means you get Jason Staples and all his scouting reports. You get all the other recruiting and everything you could imagine on the premium side. And also you get a Johnny T-shirt discount, 10% off your order if you're an Inside Carolina premium subscriber. Go see him on Franklin Street.
I'll have that.
Go see him on Franklin Street. Go see him online. Support them. We support them. They love us. We love them. You should love them. They're a great place to get Carolina swag. Jason, another day of availability at North Carolina. We heard from Bill Belichick, wide receiver Alex Taylor, and linebacker Andrew Simpson, who I thought was pretty impressive. Andrew Simpson, of course, he's an old guy, but brings some interesting insight to why he's in Chapel Hill and all. If you haven't watched those videos, go check them out. Also had our 12 to 13 to 15 minutes of practice that the media is allowed to see. One thing I think we agree on, Jason, clearly, is that progress is being made. And progress towards who will trot out there first, especially on the offensive line, appears to be coming a little more crystal clear as we get closer to TCU.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we've been hearing for a good bit over a week now that they've been especially pleased with one freshman who's kind of seized the bull by the horns at left tackle. And a couple days ago, I 2 or 3 days ago now. Maybe it was 4 days ago. I can't even remember now. I posted up on the last update thread on the Tar Pit Premium message board that I think we've got a sense of who the likely starting lineup is on the offensive line, and what we saw in terms of the first group on the sled matched that exactly. And so I think what we saw this time was, in terms of if they're in two tights, that's your personnel when they step on the field against TCU if it was tomorrow. And so from left to right, that was, well, actually, we'll go right to left because that's really where the really interesting thing is. But right tackle, Ja'Kai Moore, which is interesting, and that's something in the summer scouting reports we talked about. It wasn't clear where he was going to slot in, that, if the athleticism was back after the injury, that maybe he'd really contend at that right tackle spot, which is something they would really like. But we'll see. And sure enough, right now, he's running with the ones at the right tackle spot. And I think he's your blindside protector as long as he stays healthy. And he looks like he's moving well. So, I mean, that if you're looking at all the stories from camp up to now, to me, the most important stories are at the two tackles. I think you could make a case that the other biggest story is obviously the injury to Blasky. And then also the injury that we talked about earlier in the week to Christo Kelly. So your top two centers right now are down. Now, again, we've got some people telling us that Kelly may be back as soon as the TCU game and all that. Color me skeptical. Normally when you're on the little cart that he's on right there, that's just a little bit longer than that. But we'll see. But either way, that's either number 1 or 1A in terms of the big stories out of camp. The other one, though, is Ja'Kai Moore at right tackle. And then you've got Daniel King at right guard. And that would be probably where Blasky would slot in if Christo Kelly's at center. But Daniel King at right guard. And then you've got Chad Lindbergh right now making the snaps with the ones. And then Aiden Buchanan at left tackle outside of Aiden Banfield. That's the one that, okay, that left side, you've got Aiden Banfield. You feel comfortable about that. That's not surprising. And Banfield, by the way, is your backup center. So, with Blasky and Kelly out, you've got Lindbergh followed by Banfield, but Banfield needs to be at that guard. So that's your interior three. And then the other big upset here, and it's not an upset really, it's a surprise, but nobody's upset about this. I can promise you that. And that is Aiden Buchanan going out there and seizing the bull by the horns and seizing that left tackle job I mean, we all, everybody was excited. They knew there was a lot of excitement in Chapel Hill when he flipped in terms of recruiting. But I'm not sure anybody, including the coaching staff, really expected him to come in and potentially be a day one starter at that spot. But right now, I think he'd be that starter. And that's in front of, redshirt senior transferred Will Osteen, who actually was lining up at left guard with the twos inside of William Boone, who also has lined up at left guard some. So it looks like they're kind of mixing and matching and flopping and trying to figure out who's situated best. But right now, right to left, it's Ja'Kai Moore, Daniel King, Lindbergh, Aiden Banfield, and Aiden Buchanan. That's a very different offensive line than what you even had in the spring available to you. And the thing is, you get Christo Kelly back, and you feel better about that. You get Blasky back, and maybe Blasky starts at center inside of King and Banfield, and then you've got Buchanan and Moore at the tackles. And the one thing I will say, that's an athletic group. They've got a lot of size on this team. It's big, but this is the most athletic set of guys that they have. And that's something that's really interesting. So what that tells me is they're really wanting to get some movement in terms of some lateral movement. That tells me to expect some outside zone, maybe more than expected, because this is a line where you've got some guys that can move. And maybe they feel a little better about pass protection as well with those two tackles and trying to get the ball downfield, which maybe I underestimated in terms of taking the under on Jordan Shipp. Because this is a group that, to me, looks like they're equipped for a little bit more of a balanced offense rather than just a run-heavy offense with the tackles that they have out there. And that makes things pretty interesting. So that, to me, is the biggest story, with Ja'Kai Moore looking like he's moving well and looks like he's taken that right tackle job ahead of Trevion Green, and then Aiden Buchanan taking that left tackle job. That's a really, really big story because those tackle spots are really important.
Yeah, and explain to folks, with left-handed quarterback, the blind side is now Ja'Kai Moore, and that is important. Eden Buchanan out there on the left side normally would be your blind side guy, but Carolina's loaded with lefty quarterbacks, so that makes that right side even more important. Jason, you mentioned a couple things there. This group is athletic, but they're huge. And watching them in person and seeing them hit the sled, they have some punch to them and all. And we've scouted and done all of that. Let's talk a little bit about pass protection versus running the football here with this group, because we talked about Trevion Green being a guy, if you can get him run blocking, he's massive. He struggles the other way, and now he's second. Just sort of, what do you envision here with this group being able to run the football with what you've got, especially there in the middle with Banfield, Lindbergh, and Daniel King?
Yeah, I mean, I do think, put truth serum in these folks and ask them a question. And, if you can get them passed on to TCU, I think you're going to get a little bit of we're going to be a whole lot better once we have Blasky or Kelly at center. Feel more comfortable because those guys are a little more athletic in terms of the movement. And Blasky's, proven to be an above average center at this level and in this league. So, with a little bit of an asterisk there at center until they can get a little healthier there. You look at the other spots. We know what Banfield is. We saw that last year. And take another step forward this year as he moves into his sophomore year. You're going to expect a little bit of a step forward. So kind of know what you're getting there. Daniel King, we know kind of what we're getting there. There was a lot of film on him. He played, 2,000 snaps at Troy. You know what you're getting. You're getting kind of a mauler. He's not the quickest guy in the world, but that's your real mauler at the right guard spot. And then the real question all along has been tackle. And the thing with that is Ja'Kai Moore is nowhere near as big as Trevion Green. I mean, Trevion Green is a massive, massive dude. Ja'Kai Moore, more like a 315, 318-pound guy, which is crazy that we're talking about that not being a massive guy, right? I mean, this is where we are in 2025, right? That this guy's 6'6", 315, 320, And you're
He's
like,
a little
well,
guy.
he's the small guy up there.
He's a
But
small tackle on the team.
but this is a guy that has double-digit starts at the right tackle, and he's played some left tackle as well in the SEC. Now, it's been a little bit since he started at tackle in the SEC because he had some injury issues, and South Carolina needed him more on the inside at different times. But with him, you are getting a more mobile guy, and that fits if you're wanting to throw the football a little more in terms of blindside protection. And the question for me, and I said this in the previews, the question for me is, are you going to get a fully healthy and rejuvenated Ja'Kai Moore, or are you going to get something else? Right now, he's looking like the latter, which means that you might have a guy who's at least, say, average for a right tackle in the SEC. They'd have taken that last year, right?
Yeah.
And then the question with Buchanan is another guy that's 6'9". I think he's listed at all of 330 pounds, but he's built more like a basketball player and kind of moves kind of like that. I don't think you're going to get the same level of just mauler out of him that you're going to get from a William Boone or a Trevion Green. But I do think the movement off the line of scrimmage, when you see him on the sled and all that, the quickness of his feet on the first and second step is really impressive for a guy that's 6'9". And he does get down and get his pad level lower than what you would expect from a guy that size too. So the bend and the foot quickness tell you that you got a guy that should be able to handle his business in the run game. And really what you're wanting from him as much as anything is just, with a guy that size, just get the right angle and make him go through you. And it looks like he's going to be able to do that as often as not, just in terms of the traits. So from that point, you've got guys that should be able to do it. And the one thing that we did call out for Lindbergh as his real strength was first and second step quickness at his in his zone run steps when he was playing, especially when he was playing at guard. So that's one thing that should transfer well to center as well. So, in a pinch, if he's your third guy, you feel pretty good about it, but you don't want to be on your third guy at center.
Yeah, not on day one, at least, and not against a team like TCU coming in to Kenan Stadium on September 1st. Talking with Jason Staples, reaction from another day of availability for the media. Bill Belichick, Alex Taylor, Andrew Simpson, and then our short time watching the guys go through some reps. Anything else stand out for you today? I do agree that the big story is the offensive line. They shore that up. And the more you talk, maybe my prediction show that we're doing on Thursday night, maybe that jades or shades some of my predictions. But anything else stand out? Anything Belichick talked about? I know last week he had some good quality conversations about install that you asked the question, the recovery, the nutrition, and all that stuff. But would you, just wrapping up here on our rapid reaction show, would you hear or see that maybe I haven't thought about?
Yeah, I think it was pretty anodyne. I mean, I just don't know that. Like he's with Belichick, you have to ask a certain kind of question to get anything of substance. And if you're asking questions about how guys are doing or how camp is going or whatever, that guy is he is the epitome of coach speak, and you're just not gonna get anything of value. And I think that's kind of where most of this is. I don't. Nothing really stood out to me. I'll just say that. Now, I'll say we also spent a good amount of time looking at the defensive line and, going through warm-ups and doing some of the special team stuff that they did. I feel like the smoothness of a few of the athlete bodies that they have in terms of the edge guys, you like some of the bodies they've got out there. We haven't really seen them do anything yet, but just in terms of watching the fluidity and watching them move, I think Price Yates looks like he's feeling pretty healthy. There's some bounce to him right now, which is good, right? There's no extra knee brace. There's no indication that he's feeling, what he overcame last year, what he had to play through at the end of the year. And then, Melkart, again, you really like the frame. You like the smoothness there. I think you feel like you've got, and Smith Vilbert looks the part as well, though he's not quite as fluid as some of the others. To me, it looks like you've got some guys that can really do something with their and move them around. I love what I see just on the hoof with those guys, but I do worry when I see the defensive tackle group. I'm sorry, I just do. That does not look like a Clemson. I've been in Clemson practices when they, have had all those, all-world defensive tackles running around, and as good as much as DeAndre Robinson was 4-star going down to Florida and all that. I just don't see one of those guys on this roster. So I do think they're going to have to find ways to make the most of Simpson and House and those edge guys and the secondary and all that. But that, to me, that's where the real question mark is still stands. And some of that is just grading on the hoof and watching these guys move around. And you mentioned it. You felt like, you're watching it like they're not even flexing. They're goofing around. They're not really putting everything into it. And that's true. Now, this is the stage of camp where especially the big guys start to really go through the motions and things like flex. But one of the things I want to look at is how easy do some of these guys move and bend and do some of those things when they're going through those movements to try to warm their bodies up before they do anything serious. And I'm just telling you, when you grade on the curve and you watch like a Christian Wilkins, who I watched do that same stuff at Clemson at 305, 310 pounds, and you watch him get those knees up over as he's, doing karaoke and getting those knees way in front of himself and all that, he would goof off, but he did it in a way that you were just like, wow, that guy's an absolute monster of an athlete. Watch him. Look at that guy move. And he did it easily as he's just goofing around. And I don't see one of those dudes. I see some guys kind of shuffling. I see some guys that have, like, okay, that guy probably squats 650, 700 pounds. Like that guy, like Isaiah Johnson, he's going to be tough to move off a spot. No doubt about that. But I'm very wait and see there. I think with what I'm seeing in terms of personnel at this point in camp, based on compared to what I thought going into camp, I'm maybe a little more bullish on the offense than I was coming in. And I'm probably right where I was on the defense coming in. Because I think being a little bit more settled at the tackles, and if you feel like Ja'Kai Moore is actually going to have a healthy year and be able to move like you're hoping at right tackle, and if Buchanan is what they think he is, what they think he might be, and you're going to have some growing pains from a freshman out there. So Gio Lopez being what they thought he would be, and then you've got the rest of that. I think there's some pieces around. I think this might be against a normal average schedule. This might be a 7 or 8 win team, but against this schedule, I think they've got more firepower on offense than most of the teams they play, and that's going to make things real interesting.
Jason Staples coming around to the Tommy Ashley positivity. I've been called somebody famous as Sunshine. I've been called Mr. Positivity. I guess folks will just have to wait. If you're watching this prior to Thursday at 9 p.m., make sure you tune in live for the Inside Carolina annual prediction show. Jason, Greg, Buck, hopefully Taylor can make it. We're going to have fun with it. Thursday night, that's August 21st, Thursday night, 9 o'clock here on the YouTube channel. And we will be having a blast. But that's it for today. Reaction from the camp grind. Camp grind nears the finish line. The offensive line is getting settled. North Carolina needs that group to get healthy, but also to get solidified, and they are working to do that. Johnny T-shirt, johnnytshirt.com, and make sure you sign up on the new On3 network if you have not already for Inside Carolina. Jason, I'll talk to you tomorrow night.